we are now being joined by a chieftain of the All Progressives Congress, Honorable Cletus Obun, to discuss the ongoing screenings and how well or otherwise the Senate is handling it. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.
Thanks for having me this afternoon.
Now, some critics, like the Coalition of United Political Parties, that's COP, believe that the Senate's bow-and-go approach to the ambassadorial screening is a national disgrace. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on this.
Well, I have always maintained the point that the Parliament is always the weeping child of democracy. The reason being that after so much period of military interregnum, Nigerians, especially within the ages of 30 and 40, have known very little of democracy. And so the Parliament, being the pivot upon which democracy revolves, is always at the receiving end of those who are ignorant of its practices. And it will require a lot of public education, and which the media is also called upon to give and ensure that the rules that guide democratic and parliamentary procedures, especially the extant laws enshrined in the Constitution which empowers Parliament to make rules for itself, have to be studied. They maybe have to become even part of our civic education in order for Nigerians to understand how Parliament operates. So it is not surprising to me that even those who should know, for political profit, proceed to act in the public space as if a sacrilege has been committed by the mere fact of asking anybody to bow and go. What does that show? Can a monarch appearing before another monarch be given lesser treatment? Can a military officer from America come to Nigeria and be given less treatment than a Nigerian military officer in the United States? And if you have, and you are a member of the International Parliamentary Union, a member of the African Parliamentary Union, a member of the West African ECOWAS Parliament, and you do not understand the rules of Parliament internationally, it is very unfortunate. What Nigerian Parliament is doing is what is the international best practice. And this is not applicable to just anybody. There are layers of screening for public officers, from ministers to ambassadors and to such other officers that the Constitution empowers the Parliament to screen. And if you have the security checks, giving a clean bill of health, and Parliament finds, for example, a former minister, for you to be a minister, the Constitution of Nigeria requires that you must qualify to be a member of the House of Reps. That is a constitutional provision. And if you have been screened before, and within the period in which you left office, you are not found to have any incriminating evidence as provided by the security agency, especially the DSS, the military intelligence, the the international agency, and all that, NIA, the Nigerian Intelligence Agency. You put that all together and they bring you information that this man, diplomatically speaking, internationally speaking, nationally speaking, constitutes no threat. And he has been a minister who served here. And there is no clear evidence of and verifiable evidence of criminality or anything that is untoward or unbecoming of a diplomat. I find it difficult to understand why such a person should waste the precious time of a parliament that is facing the most trying times in the history of our country by way of the security situation. And then they now say, bow and go, let us take orders. And you begin to make a hue and cry about it as if there is nothing to do. Is it Ibas who just left as a 3-star general? And is it Ibas who left as an ambassador under Buhari? Is it Ibas who left as a military administrator just yesterday? A chief of naval staff just recently, within a space of a decade. Is it the one you want to be drilled? Well, that he has no international exposure?
Allow me to interrupt you there.
And that is why under the military somebody asks you.
Allow me to interrupt you. You have an interesting take on this. And I don't think that it's on Ibas that people have an issue with the screenings. There are some other names on there that are a little more controversial, and I'm sure that you yourself would agree, but I understand why you have to take the stance that you do. If you were to advise the Senate on improving the ambassadorial screening process, which we're watching, what specific reforms would you recommend to ensure better scrutiny of their competence, their character, and their diplomatic suitability other than bow and go?
Now, precisely, I was just laying a foundation to show that there are some people you don't need to screen. But there are others too who are questionable.
Said that. Yes.
Palpably and evidently so. Yes, so the point I'm making here is that there should be a general departure through the amendment of rules and extant statutes that gives you a capsule whose content you don't know. For instance, you want to send somebody to the Caribbean. You want to send somebody to Afghanistan. You want to send a Nigerian ambassador to China, which is invading Nigeria in terms of international relations and trade. You need to know who that kind of person. But they just give you a capsule and say, this person will be an ambassador. So you are drilling him to say you are going to ambassador. Will a Nigerian ambassador to South Africa be expected to have the same background as a Nigerian ambassador to the United States? It is surely not so. So I will recommend that Mr. President or their constitution should specify that Mr. President, in sending the names, should attach to them the country they want to send them to, so that their suitability and their background checks should now be directed in that, to focus on that. Is this man suitable, for example, to be Nigeria's image in the UN, in the US, in Europe, within the European Union? Can you operate within the European Union? What is his background? That can help a lot. So amendment to the law and to the rules and to the regulations that Mr. President it should also go even into ministers. When you blame people for saying, why do you pass a minister? And then a man who is a chemistry teacher in the university is brought to become trade and industry minister, or becomes a chief of army staff, as you can see in some of the things that this becomes a minister of defense. It becomes an anomaly. So I would recommend first that the parliament should be bold enough to say that we are amending these laws to say for any person you want to appoint, especially of this nature like ministers and ambassadors, show us and indicate where you want to send him. In that way, to guide us to know how to screen him. Otherwise, this whole circle and this hue and cry about who and what qualifies you to be an ambassador, then if the Nigerian president can only have a school certificate or has the capacity to read and write, is his qualification, why will you want to question an ambassador? But that's a different kettle of fish. And like I said, my recommendation will be that the parliament should do that. Until we do that, we cannot turn around to blame parliament for giving a bow and go for a man who has already a public image, who has served the public, and who has shown credibility and integrity in all his public career.
Honorable, how effectively would you say the Senate has scrutinized some of those nominees who have issues such as conflict of interest, ethical concerns, or pending corruption allegations?
Now, an indictment is not a conviction. If a man is under investigation until he is convicted, that is what our constitution, the ground norm of our country, the Bible and Quran of our existence as a nation, as a country, as a democratic country within the Committee of Nations, dictates that until a man is convicted by a court of competent jurisdiction...
Wouldn't it amount to a distraction? You know, when you give somebody that has such controversy, such a prominent post to represent the country internationally, shouldn't we settle those cases first before confirming them as diplomats?
I wouldn't subscribe to the fact that people who are under trial, except where it carries a sentence of death, that is what our law prescribes, unless when it carries a sentence of death or life imprisonment, that you can. If it is the others, there is a time limit within which your conviction makes you free, or sometimes you call state pardon can even be granted. There are offenses that state pardon cannot be granted. So for such people, for me, I do not think that on their own they should even allow themselves to be put in the public domain. But because we lack integrity, and some men and some people are so thirsty for public office without qualifying for such public office, I will not subscribe to the fact that a man who has himself knows that he is not competent or knows that he has a case to answer which has a probability, a 70-60% probability of conviction, should be even brought there. And you can also see, and this is one of the things I have to put the presidential aides on trial, that a dead person is put on the list. You are not even asking that question. How come, I mean, if you are even talking about a man who, if they don't know that this person is dead, is it a man who has a case in court that they will even get to know? Because we have no database in this country. You commit a traffic offense in Lagos, you commit an assault case in Maiduguri, and then you move into Abuja, and then in other countries, in other crimes, in other advanced countries under technology, a print of your finger, a pop of your name on the database will show that you are a serial criminal offender, and that puts you away as a consistent offender. But here we don't have the database. So you may be shocked that the people you are talking about, the government or the appointing authority like the president, may only be knowing about it because of public scrutiny. And this president has shown sufficient courage that each time he is confronted and shown evidence that this person is not competent, under this Tinubu administration, he has reversed himself over 3 times on serious matters in which there is an outcry by the public. If there is palpable evidence that this person is standing trial for an offense that can carry a prison term, I am very sure this president will drop the person and will not allow him to go. So it is both the duty of the citizens, the media, civil society organizations to draw attention to such things. But where they don't carry the weight that will vitiate an action taken by the president will have no choice but to proceed to stand his ground. But I have seen this president have the courage to change his position when there's a public evidence to show that a particular person or officer is not competent to remain in office. He has never shied away from taking decisions. And I don't think this should be an exception. If we have anybody within this ministerial list that we know and can show evidence that he has a case to answer, which will in future hamper, jeopardize, or damage the image of Nigeria and reputation of Nigeria internationally and globally, diplomatically, certainly this president will change his mind and drop such a person, even if he's cleared and screened by the National Assembly.
Okay, Cletus, Obun, thank you for that. Once confirmed, as it seems that most of these, or if not all of these candidates will be given the bow and go, once confirmed, what should be the key performance indicators for these new ambassadors in their first year beyond their ceremonial duties that they have to perform, particularly concerning trade, security, diaspora engagement? How will we measure their performance?
I remember I was a parliamentarian and I experimented something with the Republic of Zimbabwe. They have a very robust women engagement program. And I wrote to their Ministry of Women Affairs. I still have the letter. And their response was that they would be very willing to cooperate. At the State House of Assembly level, the government of Zimbabwe responded to us and said that they would give us a 1-week program in Zimbabwe, Harare. And what did I do? Shortly after that, we left office. Because there is no institutional memory, my Committee on Women Affairs couldn't continue it in the House. What am I trying to say? As an ambassador, there are things that you can bring to your country that will improve even regional, even state engagement and develop us, especially in the challenge of security. In an age of technology, where drones can dictate and fish out any criminal from a distance, as we have seen happen everywhere, I wonder why our ambassador to China, our ambassador to Britain, our ambassador to the US cannot, even if he cannot do it at the national scale, bring it to the regions, as you are seeing the Enugu state government try to do, as you are seeing the Cross-River state government trying to do in agriculture and such things. You can't devolve power to the states. You can imagine that under the Buhari administration, which is sustained by the Tinubu administration, there is a devolution of power concerning energy, in which states can now power their own states, as you see Abia trying to do, with about 3 waterfalls in Cross River State, the Abokum Waterfall, the Ranch Waterfall, and the Kwa Falls in Calabar. You can run an electricity program that can take about 4 or 5 states. What is wrong, for example, with Nigerian ambassador to China asking for that? What is wrong, for example, saying, give us a zonal or regional rail line for the south-south, for the northeast, for the north-central, for the southeast. If you link up the states within that region alone, if you cannot take a national rail system, and then thereafter link the regions, in that way, you can get it done. These are things that ambassadors can bring to their country. How about education? Several education programs are lying fallow because there is no information about it. This is what a good ambassador will activate. Then you have a market. Nigeria has gone out of its way, losing soldiers and money in a comoc. America does not stay in the Sahel for nothing. It doesn't go to Sudan for nothing. It doesn't go to Congo for nothing. There must be a national interest. What has been the national interest of Nigeria after contributing so much to international peacekeeping operations? We have nothing to show for it. We keep peace abroad and come home to suffer lack of peace. So I think that our ambassadors, if they sit on their toes with these challenges in their hands, they can do so much and bring so much to Nigeria without stretching the national government's purse. I think we have the capacity to do that, and good ambassadors can do that for Nigeria and for Nigerians.
Now, Honorable, as we wrap up this interview, some analysts believe the reason why some controversial nominees have been given the bow and go approach is due to the fact that political compensation is overshadowing merit. Isn't this something that should worry the Senate if indeed it is not a rubber stamp assembly?
That last part of it is the one that shakes the ground. When you call the National Assembly that have rejected ministerial nominees, if you call the National Assembly that have rejected a presidential request to intervene when there was a coup in the Sahel, a National Assembly that has done such things cannot be seen to be rubber stamp. But leave that aside. I have said to you, if there is cogent and verifiable reason for any nominee to go, it is not just about the Senate. The Senate is just 109 out of 250 million Nigerians. We as citizens, as constituents, owe it, the media owe it a duty to produce evidence. Where they go ahead to do so, let it be said that as citizens, we have performed our own role. As media, fourth estate of the realm, we have performed our own role, but that this Senate and this government have refused to obey us, and we take judicial and political notice of it in the next elections. But to continue to blanket everything, would tar it with one brush and give it a rubber stamp tag just because one error or one action that we do not agree with has been taken, I think it will be amounting to cynicism. That level of criticism is cynicism and not criticism. Criticism should seek solutions, profile alternatives, and in that way, give us good governance and build a nation that all of us are proud of and in which no man is oppressed. That, for me, is the Nigeria that we should seek, and not just condemnation, but commendation and recommendations as well when government policies do not go well with the citizens. And that is why we have different stratas of reaction and different stratas of society to take care of those areas in which the voice of the voiceless and the defender of the defenseless will have to come out to play. And that role is belonging to all Nigerians. And that's why most people have told you that the biggest government is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. We must have to defend our rights. And to do so, we must voice out everything that we think is not going well for our country. And I think this is the moment to do that. We cannot just say some nominees, something. Let us name them. For instance, I remember my friend, Dr. Ono, Sisi Ono's son, pointing out clearly that the nomination of Reno Omokri was simply misplaced. Are we suggesting that from that place, given that this was one of the implacable opponents of APC and one of the die-in-the-wool proponent of an Atiku presidency or Peter Obi presidency, to come back and serve here is to tell those who stood by the president, and by the, when you talk about political patronage, what is it that makes you go for a particular candidate or political party? It's because you're expecting patronage. That does not sacrifice merit. What is the exam you have set that party members failed that you are now looking for outside the party? Who are the technocrats that we don't have within the party? If we do not have, and we are needing technocrats from the military, we now understand because those are supposed to be neutral. But if we are dealing with the polity, Please, there is no community in this country that does not have a qualified person to occupy any office in Nigeria. None. I can bet you on this. And I can tell you, like I said, sitting here, and name for you in every local government, 774, I can name for you at least 2 professionals that I know in the 774 local governments as I sit here now. So why will you want to think that a man like Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who has his connections and contacts across the country, will not know that without this Ereno Omokri, without this, we can have another person from this particular area. So for me, I do think that it is a misplaced thing. It is rewarding loyalty with ignominy. And I don't think that is good for our politics. Why will politics not be about patronage when people work so hard to produce a government and cannot be strong enough to benefit from such a government? Who says that? Is it a crime? Is it faulty? Are you supposed to bring your opponents to run a government who don't believe in you, and then they come around to prove that you are not a good man, you are not qualified, by doing the wrong things and demarketing the party and the government? Is that what you want to do? Is that an achievement? Is that a criteria? Is that the way to go? Clearly it is not. As far as I'm concerned,
thank you so much.
Party members are there who qualify to occupy this
Newsday.
opposition.
Thank you for joining
They are
us.
qualified members within the party.